My name is Jamal, and I'm 13 years old. I was willing to do anything to protect my family, and that didn't change when I met him. I lived with my mother and sister in New Canton. It was now 4 years since my father was shot to death as a bystander in a shootout between the police and the Albaz cartel. My older brother didn't fare much better. A couple of guys from the Black Ridge gang had robbed a liquor store and fled the scene in their old Ford. Either they didn't see my brother or they didn't care about him. In any case, they killed him. Right there, hit him, and he died lying in the street, long before an ambulance was in sight. I was 6 years old when this happened, and today I can't even remember his voice. When I was 11 years old, I simply stopped going to school. I just couldn't stand it there anymore. School was one big battlefield. Every day there were fights, knife attacks, drug deals. None of the teachers inspired or motivated their students. It was clear to them that we would soon end up on the streets and nothing would become of us. This was simply due to the situation in New Canton. There was hardly any work here, hardly any prospects of a decent life, especially not for people like me from the Bowtown neighborhood. Neither the school nor the authorities were interested in my absence from school. Nobody cared. My mother didn't like it, but she was too drunk to look after me. She wasn't always like that. I guess all the blows of fate got to her. So, of course, it wasn't long before I joined a gang. They called themselves the Knights of the Hood, and they cultivated this image. With the money they earned, they built a youth center and organized a party at the retirement home. Of course, they didn't tell anyone that the money came from drug deals and robberies. At first, I was given small jobs like stealing whiskey and stuff. After I proved myself to be loyal and trustworthy, they introduced me to the drug business. I was finally able to earn some money to support my mother, and it turned out they hadn't built the youth center without ulterior motives, because it was the headquarters of their drug operation, so to speak. My job was to play pool. I played all day at the table at the back left, even though I was terrible. When someone came to my table and placed a certain amount of money on it, apparently to challenge me, I dropped a small bag into the corner of the table. The customer took it out of the pocket inconspicuously, and I pocketed the money. It went pretty well, and it didn't look suspicious to the outside world, and I earned $30 a day and was able to help my mother pay the rent. She knew that the money had come from illegal transactions, but she needed it too much not to accept it. The fact that I could go and help her pay the rent made me quite proud, and I felt good. But I was soon to get to know the dark side of the business. Maurice, the guy he was sort of my boss in the drug business, told me that a boy my age often stood outside the youth center and sold his own stuff. And we couldn't tolerate that, and it was my job to teach him a lesson. When I asked him, well, how should I teach him a lesson? Maurice clearly told me that the best thing to do would be to kill him, or at least beat him up and send him to the hospital. I didn't really want to have anything to do with that, but according to Maurice, well, I had no choice. If I refused, I would be considered a traitor, and the family of a traitor would no longer be safe, he said. Well, I couldn't let anything happen to my mother or even my little sister. We were all broken in some way, but my little sister Lily was different. She was pure and innocent. She was the best in her class at elementary school, and with luck might have a better life ahead of her than the rest of us. The guy outside, he was taller and more muscular than me, and, well, so I had to think of something. I filled a sock with a load of my sister's marbles and made myself a deadly club. I hid it in my jacket pocket the next day as I walked out of the center and towards our rival. "What do you want, boy? Go back inside and play with your balls," he said arrogantly. When I hit him in the face with that bag of marbles, I not only saw the blood spatter, but also two of his teeth fall to the ground. The boy fell to the ground in a daze and was defenseless. But that probably wasn't enough to send him to the hospital, so I hit him again and again and again. It was a strange feeling. I had somehow lost control of myself. Was it the adrenaline? When I saw something sharp and white sticking out through his bloody cheek, I stopped. It was part of his shattered cheekbone. The boy's face was bloody and swollen. He was spitting out blood out of his mouth. He could hardly breathe. His nose is all smashed and broken. As breathing through that was no longer an option. As Maurice had told me, I made sure that no one had seen me, and then I left. Even when I was sitting in my room at home, well, I saw the face I had destroyed in front of me. What had I done? I took the marbles out of my death club and burned the sock, as Maurice had explained to me, when I saw that even the marbles were stained with his blood. Was he perhaps about to choke on his own blood? Then I was now a murderer. Disgusted with myself and terrified of what I had become, I lay down in bed and cried. I didn't have much time to mourn my own soul because tomorrow, well, business had to go on. And so I carried on doing my thing with the billiards. Maurice and the other guys were happy with me. I was just as happy with the money I was earning until the day I got that terrible phone call. So I was in town and I had just bought a Coke at the store when I was stopped by the police. Already knew Officer Meyer and Officer Milton. It wasn't the first time I'd had problems with them. The absurd thing was they didn't even know that I was dealing drugs in the youth center. This time they stopped me with their blue lights flashing and stepped out of their patrol car because they thought my shoes were suspicious. Someone like me couldn't afford Air Jordans, said Milton. My mother had given them to me for my birthday, but they weren't interested. As usual, they searched me and found nothing. Before they let me go, Meyer told me that it made him angry that his son had to go to school with people like me. Just when I thought I had the worst part of what was actually a nice sunny day done, the real bad part came. My mother called, and when I answered the phone, I could barely understand what she was saying. She was crying. My little sister had cancer. I didn't understand much about it, but it was apparently an aggressive type that was about to burn itself out. There was a new experimental treatment with a good chance of success, but as we didn't have health insurance, we couldn't afford it. Lily, my little sister, was going to die. She would die even though the doctors could care for her. I hated this sick, stingy world where it was all about money. The treatment lasted almost 4 weeks and cost $1,200 a day. Man, that was a lot of money. But maybe there was a chance. I had proven myself loyal for 2 years now. Maybe there was a job for me in the gang that would let me earn enough. I went to Maurice and told him that I needed $50,000 and if there was a way to earn it. He laughed and he said he'd never seen that kind of money. Now, he wanted to know if I was in any trouble, if someone's dead or someone was blackmailing me. I tearfully told him about my sister, her illness, and that she would be dead in 6 months at the latest. Apparently, he had once lost someone to cancer himself and felt sorry for me. There's something, but I'll be honest, that wouldn't be a job like the Knights of the Hood. If you work for this guy, you're going to have to do some sick shit. Selling drugs or beating someone up seems totally normal to you. We got him some stuff once, and that was borderline. I can tell you where you can find it, but mark my words, you'll regret it, said Maurice. It didn't matter to me. As long as I could help my sister, I was prepared to do anything. I myself was lost, and I knew that since I'd beaten that boy almost to death in front of the center, I was going nowhere. But my sister had a future. I firmly believed that. Maurice gave me an address and said I had to show up there between 2 a.m. and 5 a.m. I shouldn't be surprised. Everyone gets dizzy the first time. I didn't know what he meant by that, but that very night I made my way to the building where I was supposed to find the man. I rode my bike to number 51 on Old Trevor Road and ended up standing in front of an abandoned store. Now, there were a lot of them in New Canton, and some of them were used for shady businesses, so I wasn't surprised. Of course, the door wasn't locked, so I went inside. There was no one in the store. Old cans, empty shelves, and a cash register that had long since been emptied. But something here was different. I felt something deep in my guts. I guess it could best be described as a vibration. It got stronger as I walked toward the door to the back room, on which someone had written management with a felt-tip pen. Well, it didn't look professional, although I began to doubt whether I could really earn that much money here, so I knocked. What did I have to lose? "Come in," someone called. As the door opened, I briefly felt like I was going to fall. I staggered but managed to stay standing, and when I looked up again, I was standing in an old-fashioned office. A middle-aged guy was sitting at the desk. He was wearing a black shirt, had slicked black hair, and piercing green eyes. On his shirt, he wore a funny badge with a smiley face that said Team Peace. "Good evening, young man. How may I help you?" asked the strange man. "Maurice said that you might have work for me, work that earns a lot of money," I said bluntly. "Well, you don't seem to have any manners. You always want to work. That's something. I remember Maurice. Did he also tell you that my work can be very special?" he asked. "Yes, sir, he did. I'm ready to do anything, and I won't ask any questions," I replied. "Oh, I doubt that. You're sure to ask some questions. I just hope they'll be the right ones." "You're in luck. I could use someone right now. My last trainee, Lucas, did so well that now he has a job in management as my deputy. Do well, too, and you'll be rewarded." "What's your name?" he wanted to know. "Jamal, sir. May I also ask what is yours?" "I'm the man of peace. The name says it all. But you'll see, Jamal. Go home now. You'll get a package from me tomorrow with instructions. Don't worry. I'll find out your address myself. Now get out of here. Shoo, shoo." "Yes, sir. Thank you very much. One more thing. Tell me, why do you want to work for me?" Lucas wanted to, but he's different from you. "About my sister, sir. She has cancer, and I need to raise money for her treatment." The man of peace suddenly seemed to be suffering from a headache because he grabbed his temple. "Is everything all right, sir?" I asked. Yes, now go, please," he said. So I did. The door somehow looked different from the inside than from the outside, but I didn't care either. And then I felt dizzy again, but I managed to stop myself from falling. There was something strange about this door. When I woke up the next day and saw how the sun was shining again today in its most wonderful orange-red hue, I almost forgot that my little sister was terminally ill. Around noon, my mother called me because there was a package for me on our doorstep. It had to be from the man of peace. Very good. I took it back to my room and opened it. There was a letter on top, which I read first. "Dear Jamal, you little rascal, you are now officially a member of Team Peace. As a sign that you belong, you now have an official Team Peace badge. I ask you to wear it all times of the day and night. You now have a new job at the New Canton Senior Center. You are officially listed there as a care assistant. Don't worry, you don't have to do anything disgusting like wiping butts. Your job is even more disgusting. There's a small animal in the little test tube. Your job is to make sure that it crawls up the nose of Miss Calber from room 303. Did you understand that? It has to be the nose, not the mouth, not the damn butt, but the critter has to go up the nose. Then watch the patient for half an hour and report back to me. Miss Calber is severely demented and confined to her bed, so you should encounter little resistance. Nevertheless, you shouldn't go to her until after midnight. I don't trust every member of the staff there. Now please eat this note. See you later. What kind of sick shit had I gotten myself into? Without giving it much thought, I ate the damn note. In the package, I also found a nurse's uniform with my name on it and even an employee ID card. As instructed, I put on the Team Peace badge and felt kind of silly, but that didn't matter. At the bottom of the small package, I found the test tube. There was a little green spider crawling around in it. That was disgusting. How was I supposed to get it to crawl up the old woman's nose? And what was it good for anyway? But these were all the things I could worry about later. There was still some time before nightfall, and time was very precious to me now. I went over to my little sister, who was so happy to see me, and spent the whole day with her. I didn't know how many of them we had left. Around 11:30 p.m., when my mother and sister were already asleep, I got ready for work. It somehow felt good to wear this uniform. It somehow no longer felt worthless. I was somebody, even though I wasn't a proper nurse. Who knows? If things had gone a little differently, I might have actually had a job where I could help people instead of poisoning them with weird spiders. Thanks to my employee ID card, I got into the building without any problems. I took a quick look at the map and saw that I was in room 303 on the third floor. That's where I'm going. I took the elevator up and then looked for Miss Caliber's room. A stocky, short orderly came toward me and scrutinized me. Damn. It must have seemed strange to him that a young guy like me was still on duty so late. He was about to say something when he noticed my Team Peace badge. Only now did I see that he was wearing one too. He nodded respectfully and walked on. Wow. Maybe the man of peace was more powerful than I thought. Shortly afterwards, I found room 303 and went in. Miss Caliber was awake and tossing her head back and forth. She had me right there staring at her. I quickly took the test tube from the bag and walked over to her. Albert, is that you? I can't see. Are you there, my darling? She asked anxiously. Damn. That was harder than I thought. Yes, I'm here. Everything will be fine. I've got some medicine for you, I replied. Oh, that's sweet of you, Albert. I'm so scared, you know. I'm sorry. I opened the test tube directly above her upper lip, and the spider crawled straight up her nose. Thank goodness for that. I didn't know what I would have done if it had crawled into her mouth. Now I sat down on the chair next to the bed and was ready to type something into the note app on my smartphone. After just a few seconds, Miss Caliber, she started twitching, but differently than before. Her face was contorted. She seemed to be in terrible pain. Then there was quiet, and suddenly she started making strange clicking noises. The noises sounded inhuman. I didn't even know how she made them. Since it was dark, I couldn't see clearly, but something was happening to her eyes. I could have got closer, but I didn't dare. Now I can hear him. The man. Yes, I'm waiting. Well, then she rolled and seemed to be asleep. After the half hour was up, I put the test tube in my rucksack and got on my bike outside. I tried with all my might not to think about what I had just done to a poor, helpless old woman. It was quite a distance from the retirement home to the store, and I really hoped it was worth it. I arrived at 2:15, went into the deserted store, and knocked on the door. Come in, called the man of peace. I was less dizzy this time, but that didn't really improve my mood. Did everything go according to plan, young man? He asked. Yes, sir. Everything went as planned, I replied. What did you observe? I took out my cell phone and read him my notes. At first, the patient seemed to be in pain, sir. Then she started making noises. They sounded like a click. She twitched and seemed to be in further pain. And then when she calmed down, she said she could hear the man now. That was probably nonsense. She called me Albert before, too, I told him. Oh, no, that wasn't nonsense. That went better than expected. I'm delighted. We've already had a few test runs with the spiders, but this time they're ready for the grand finale. You helped me a lot, Jamal. Come back in 2 days. There'll be more to do then. And don't forget your payment, said the man of peace. He handed me a small bag. I said goodbye and walked out. I heard it jingle somehow, if it was like a bag of coins. I certainly wouldn't be able to pay for my sister's treatment with it. Outside, on my bike, I opened the bag, and what I saw in the light of the lantern shocked me. It was diamonds. A whole lot of diamonds. The next day, I took them to Maurice, who wanted to know straight away if I had done anything without the gang. When I told him I had the diamonds from the man of peace, he immediately accepted it without asking any more questions. He took me to Kenneth, the fence who sold the gems for the Knights of the Hood. He estimated the value of the stones was just over $25,000 and was able to give me $15,000 in cash. Yes, that was it. So I could easily pay for my sister's treatment. I took the money to my mother, who wanted to know if I had robbed anyone. Even when I swore to her several times that I had worked for it, she didn't believe me. Nevertheless, She took it and immediately drove to the clinic with my sister. Her treatment could finally begin. If it meant I could save my sister, I was prepared to shove a stupid spider up the nose of every old person in the whole country. But that wasn't to happen for a while. When I knocked on the office again at the desired time and entered, the man of peace had another task for me. Mr. Applebaum died today at the retirement home. Sad, isn't it? Yes, sir, very sad. His family loved Mr. Applebaum very much, and despite his advanced age, they miss him terribly. What do you say we bring him back to life, he asked. And we can do that, sir? But nothing could be easier. The elixir I'm about to give you works wonders. You have to pour it into his mouth and make sure you don't spill any. Also, make sure you don't get any of it on your skin, as it could cause irritation. Afterwards, don't watch him. But wait until he gets up. Don't be afraid, he won't hurt you. His feeding instinct is suppressed for now. He will wander far away. You just have to open the door for him. Great. So he's going to get up and get out? I should create a walking dead man? I took the elixir, put on my uniform, and set off on my bike to the retirement home. According to the man of peace, the dead man was in a special room in the basement. I took the elevator down and searched in vain for a light switch. As the whole thing wasn't scary enough, I only had the light from my cell phone to help me. After a few minutes, I found the room and slowly entered. The dead man was lying on a stretcher. I found it kind of disturbing how his jaw was kind of folded down. Nevertheless, it made my job easier. I moved closer to him and noticed the smell of decomposition settling in. I carefully poured the green elixir from the test tube into his mouth and immediately stepped back a few meters. Even though I wanted to run away immediately, I couldn't. I had to make sure he really got up. After about 45 minutes, his arm suddenly fell off the table. I was startled, but thought, well, maybe it's normal. Then one of his legs twitched, and finally the dead man started to gasp. I couldn't believe my eyes when Mr. Applebaum stood up from the stretcher and looked at me hungrily. Even though the man of peace had assured me he wouldn't eat me. Perhaps Mr. Applebaum saw it differently. Then he suddenly seemed to look at my Team Peace badge and stood still. That must have been my mission. I opened the door out of the room for him and then the door out into the alley where the garbage cans were. Rattling, he stumbled out and wandered toward his destination, whatever that was. I had just seen a real undead. Still, my working day wasn't over yet. I cycled to the man of peace and reported back to him. He was very pleased and handed me another bag as a reward. Outside, I saw this time it was gold. Kenneth was able to turn this into money for me the next day, and I paid the $11,000 directly into my mother's account. The employee at the counter looked at me suspiciously, but after all, there was no law against wealth. And so it went. Day after day, I resurrected the undead for him, put spiders or sometimes a small beetle up other people's noses. I was now earning enough money to soon have paid for my sister's treatment in full. That was a great feeling. My mother was at the clinic with her, and I hadn't seen or spoken to them for weeks because I was working so much, but it was worth it. When almost a month had passed, I had just left another undead for the man of peace from the retirement home when my mother called me. It was just after 1 a.m. What did she want from me? She was probably drunk again. Nevertheless, I answered the phone and pretended to be asleep. Yeah, what is it, Mom? It's late. Jamal, please come to the hospital immediately. Quickly. To the hospital? Why? Do you want me to pick you up? I have money. I can also send you a cab. Is Lily well again? I asked. No, Jamal, the treatment didn't work for your sister. She's dying. She probably won't survive the night. Please come quickly. She really wants to see you again. My stomach suddenly felt so empty. My whole body felt empty. When she was diagnosed with cancer, I knew she could die, but I had hope. I could still do something. There were options. When you get a call like that and you know that there are no more options and no more hope, it pulls the rug right out from under you. She wanted to see me one more time, so she knew she was dying. This world is so unfair. Why did a lovely 6-year-old girl get cancer? It wasn't fair. I had to get on to the driving. I wanted to get on my bike and ride to the clinic, but my legs literally felt like jelly. I didn't want this. I didn't want my sister to die. She didn't deserve that. She shouldn't be lying in a room like that tomorrow morning, like Mr. Applebaum. Then I thought of something. Maybe I didn't have to bury her at all. After all, I'd brought a dozen people back from the dead in the last few weeks. Yes, instead of going to the clinic, I drove to the Man of Peace. I knocked on the door and entered. This time he wasn't alone. Next to him was a huge muscle-bound guy with a bag on his head, and he was wearing a nurse's outfit. "Hello, Jamal, a little early. This is Festus, my head nurse here at the facility," he said. Festus raised his hand. "Hello," I said. "You look upset. What's up?" "Sir, I'd like to ask you for something. Could I turn another patient today? I don't want any payment. I'll do it for free. And could you please make sure this patient doesn't run away? Please?" I said tearfully. "What does that mean? Get to the point, young man." "Sir, it's my sister. I was able to pay for her treatment, but it didn't work. She's dying anyway right now." Again, the Man of Peace seemed to be getting a headache. He had to concentrate hard to continue the conversation. Before he said anything, he signaled to Festus, and he started moving. When he opened the door, I didn't see the abandoned store, but a long, dark corridor with dozens of cells. "It won't help your sister if you turn her. I actually have other tasks at the moment, but you helped me, and you're on my team. If you play on my team, I won't let you down," he said. Festus came back in and gave me a test tube. "Give this to your sister. Then you will not tell your mother, but you will order her to go to the place I write on this note. You will follow as soon as you have compiled one last task for me. In this place, you'll be safe from what happens here, because I still need you, Jamal. I need you to do this task, and now you're in my debt, and will still have a lot to do for me. Perhaps more than either of us would like." Concerned, confused, I was given a small package and then left the office as instructed. Instead of going into the hallway, I ended up back in the abandoned store. But that wasn't important. I wouldn't have thought it possible how fast I could ride my bike. On the way, I thought about the words of the Man of Peace and all the news I had read recently about the walking dead, spider people, and plagues. The world was perhaps on the brink of the apocalypse, and it could well be that this was partly my doing. It took me less than an hour to get to the clinic. At the reception, I said that I had to see my dying sister, and the lady directed me to the palliative care ward. There I met my mother, who had apparently been waiting for me. I didn't like the fact that my sister was alone, but it certainly wasn't easy to watch her child die. I took her by the hand and went into my sister's room with her. I didn't recognize her at first. She was pale and emaciated, and looked as if she'd been dead for a week. She looked at me but was no longer able to speak, but she smiled. That brought tears to my eyes. "Listen, Mom. What I'm about to tell you is no joke. You'll believe me as soon as Lily gets better. If you believe me, then go with her immediately to the address on this note. I'll be there as soon as I can." "What nonsense are you talking about, Jamal? Go sit with your sister, and hey, stop it. What are you doing?" Before she could stop it, I tipped the other elixir into Lily's mouth. My mother pulled me away from her bed and slapped me across the face. She wanted to give me a lecture, but then she was distracted by a noise. It was a chuckle.
Lily was sitting on the edge of the bed and emptying a 1.5-liter water bottle in one go. The color clearly returned to her face. It was unbelievable. Now she would believe me. I pressed the note into my mother's hand, smiled at my sister, and left the room. I still had something to do in the cellar. In a corner, I quickly changed into my nurse's outfit so I wouldn't stand out. According to the instructions, the dead woman was already prepared and all I had to do was give her the injection. She was laid out in the exact place the man of peace had described to me. While a man's scream rang out somewhere above me, I put the syringe in the dead woman and injected the greenish liquid into her stomach. After that, all I could see was the writing on her abdomen. It read, "Model 389, Mother." While the woman's belly inflated and I helped her to sit up as the man of peace had ordered me to do, I thought of my sister. I had made it. Shortly afterwards, I cycled to the address on the paper, went to our new apartment, and I heard gunshots and screams in the background. Then I remembered the last words on the note from the man of peace. This test world was necessary. Now we have a functioning army, and you will help me lead it, Jamal. You can have remorse, but don't regret anything. While I opened the door to our new apartment, I felt dizzy again, this time a lot more than usual. It was different here. It was daytime, and the sun wasn't as red as I was used to. It was more of a yellowish color. There were no monsters or undead here. Not yet. My sister was fine, but I wasn't. I'd sold my soul for her and doomed an entire world so that she could live. I had to live with that now.
Hey, horror fans, do you want to learn more about the Man of Peace and his experiments? Then click here and subscribe to our channel. All stories on the channel are connected and tell one large story.